Welcome. This is the podcast Helping the Brave. My name is Amy Tiemeyer. I'm here with my co-host Ed Parco, and
That's right. And
we
we're the hosts
are
of
part of.
Amy. You act like you've never done this before. Sometimes love you to
I do
death,
act
but
that way.
you're like, it's like you get nervous all of a sudden. I don't know why. It's not like you've been on stage multiple times and stuff like that. Just don't worry about it. So,
All right. I'd like to introduce my friend Ron O'Farrell. Thank you for joining us.
let's bring.
I'm here.
Hey, Ron. Sorry, have to give her a hard time sometimes.
Oh no, I appreciate it. The part that I love the most about this is it's somebody giving her a hard time because she gives everyone else such a hard time. Right?
Yes, she does.
Right, and
Yep.
that's one of the rules, right? Is don't get awkward, make other people feel awkward. Well,
Yeah.
seeing Amy squirm right now is it's the highlights.
Whatever.
And the funny part is people say I'm mean to her. In reality, she's just mean to us off camera. People just don't know how mean she is to us. We just do it all the
Not
time.
true. I am
We're the same on camera as off camera. She just hides it. So
Agreed. Right. I love to see her blush.
And I appreciate you being on today, Ron. I know you're Amy's guest, but I'm just gonna jump in here real quick. What service were you in, and why'd you pick it?
Ooh, good question. I was in the Army. Why did I pick it? The influence that I had at an early age was my stepfather, who was a Vietnam era Ranger, and as a kid, inside my bedroom door was that Vietnam picture, the old black and white one that says "War is Hell" on the side, and I remember he. Some kids that could go ride bikes in the evenings and stuff like that, and I got to look at contour lines and see where he did like raids and stuff, and in all these different places I couldn't pronounce in Vietnam. But that's what resonated me as a child, and I just thought, man, that's really cool. And for some reason, I just knew that was going to be it. And also is when I went to the recruiting station, and I was actually looking at the Marines pretty hard. But then I saw the contract. Somebody came and let their contract roll out, like, it's just one continuous sheet, right, on the floor. And I was like, I'm not signing that. Little did I know that the Army just has them in papers, and it's just that thick. So it's whatever.
Just looked more intimidating, right? Because it rolled down. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I ended up going into, volunteering to be a Ranger, and I don't know.
Were you a Ranger?
Yes. Wow. So I went in. Initially, when I went in, I had an 11 X-ray airborne contract, which was that I was guaranteed something in infantry and airborne. And that was it. And Somalia happened in Mogadishu, and when that went on, and I saw, the Rangers were killed, and obviously other special operators, that extremely resonated with me extremely because of my stepfather, right? And so I went back to my recruiter, reneged on my contract. I said, I'm not going any in the Army unless I know I'm going to be able to go to a Ranger battalion in my contract. So that's when I changed over in what's called an Option 40 contract, Airborne Ranger. This gives you the opportunity to get there, and I was as a 31 Charlie, so it's communications. But a lot of the work that we did, especially even as radio guy, was we had to do just as much as everything as 11 Bravo, or depending on what was going on.
Just so you know, my son's a medic airborne in the Army right now. So
nice. All right. Yeah.
I'm Navy, but he, I told him you can't go Navy because you'll be stuck on a ship, which you don't want as a corpsman. So just go. Army guaranteed what he wanted, so he went that way. Ranger school is not very easy.
Well,
Amy wouldn't
here's what
know
I'd say.
this, but the rest of us would.
Yeah, in coming to the regiment, there's two. Well, there's one training of thought, but in the Army, there's two trainings of thought when we talk about Ranger, right? So for us, we have a saying that the tab is just a school, but the scroll is a way of life. And so, when I went through to get to the regiment, we started with 390. We graduated 90, 30, I think 36 of us went to 2nd Battalion. And then like 6 months later, there was like maybe 12 of us left. So it was more of, do you have what it takes to do it as a lifestyle on a consistent basis? Well, don't get me wrong, it's one of the best leadership schools, in the world. But when it comes into day in and day out, holding that standard every single day and having that concern of, am I doing my job right? And it being all voluntary, it's different. It's different thought process. I am glad, however, that I was able to broaden my understanding of, not only the Army, but all, the branches as my career progressed, because, in those units, you're taught, you're motivated, you're inspired, and it's ingrained in you that you are the only thing that the DoD needs. Couldn't be farther from the truth.
Right. Yeah, nobody needs the SEALs or anything. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially on missions that. Never mind. We won't even get into that one.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying it's ingrained each one of you how special you are because you got through what you got through and they make it so hard so only certain people get through, and it's the top. And Amy, don't worry, I'll let you ask a question in a second. How long were you in?
So I was a total of 8 years. So the first 5 years was all active duty, with at 275 here near JBLM, and then I came back as a break in service as a U.S. Army recruiter.
Did you have any questions, Amy?
I do. So when you transitioned the first time, because we always talk about how what everyone's transition stories, and it's been very different through the ages. Did you go through TAPS or anything the first time you transitioned, or the second time, or?
Yeah, so the first time definitely went through TAPS, well, and whatever clearing. I'll say I went through TAPS and I cleared posts. In those days, so my first break was in 2000, and they didn't have any resources like that. It was just like, they had the TAPS program, and when you're going through it, it's like, wow, all this information is awesome. But the references as, okay, well, here's this thick book that you could, if you need XYZ, but it's just such a blur. You're not thinking about or focused on any type of transition. You're focused on, oh shit, where's that canteen cup? I can't get out of here unless I, find that P mask. Oh, Jones has it. Shit, where's he at? That's what's going through your mind versus let me pay attention to the person in front of me. So yeah, that and with that is there was nothing available to let me know that, hey, for your VA claims, for your benefits, and things that you've earned, these are things that you should be applying for and set up for, etc. And unfortunately, it wasn't until I think it was 12, maybe 15 years later that I actually applied for my first claim. And, that was also when I started on my path of, making sure that I shared with as many people as possible to not run into the same, lack of planning and preparation that I had. And so.
And how do you do that? Since I don't know who you are very much, Amy knows you.
Yeah. So, so from that first transition, in those days, it was pretty much, I'm out of the Army. I don't want anything to do with anybody. Let me go live my life. Or AKA I'll figure it out, as we like to say. And that AKA figuring it out didn't go very well. I was just like a lost soul out there. I just was like, okay, I'll go to school. Let me go to work. You know, I had a child at the same time, going through a divorce. And then when I came back in the Army, that gave me some more, I guess, foundation that applied more structure that I was lacking in my life. Excelled at that, became the top recruiter in a 5-state region. And then from there, I rolled off and just said, well, if I'm recruiting here, I can do this for anybody. So I went and took a director of admissions position with DeVry University, worked with them for a while, did the entrepreneurial thing. And really it was like a ship without a rudder going along until I had an incident that was a life-changing event. I had a DUI, right? And you know, long story short, because I know we're sort of, you know, because I want to respect everyone's time, but it was at a point in my life where it was the lowest, because I had the business that I had prior to that just collapsed, right? Getting in business with the wrong people, you know, we raised a bunch of money. They thought it was their personal ATM. I found out, and just everything started to crumble. So I found myself instantly, you know, living in, you know, Kirkland with Lake Washington as my front yard, working in Bellevue, to, oh shit, now I'm homeless. I have nothing, I have no income, no VA claims or anything like that. And I did what most of us do, you know, self-therapy, and do what we're good at, drinking. And one day actually, it was far too much. Long story short, I blew a .27, had a 3-car collision. I was one of them. Thank God I didn't severely hurt anybody. And from there is the first time where I was like, I need to take some responsibility for my life, responsibility for, you know, where I'm headed. You know, all of those contracting dreams where I could go, let's go back in, all those safety nets were just vanished with that, right? So I was started getting, that's when the first time I came back into the veteran community, and was like, I felt like it was at a Ranger breakfast, and it was like I hadn't seen these guys in, you know, 7-8 years. Oh shit, by the time it was probably 10 years at that point. And it was kind of like my tail between my legs, like, hey, I've screwed up. I didn't do it right. And it was just everyone was welcome in arms. And that's the first time I met Leroy Petrie, and he had just came back from Dallas. This had been 7 years ago. He just got back from Dallas when they first put that report out about the 22 a day. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's crazy. So another little fun fact, I don't know if you knew, I don't even think Amy knows this, but there's this VA crisis text line, a text crisis line that you could text into and actually interact with the VA. And I actually stood that program up with Izzy Abbas, where we worked with a lot of carriers doing SMS texting. So I thought in my little mind, I was like, oh shit, that solved it. Everybody text messages. This is gonna be the thing. Clearly it was not. And that's when I saw that my problems were so much smaller than others that were going through struggles. And so I kind of coined the phrase now, but I leaned in, and the next thing I know, I was sponsored to become a loan officer, joined an organization called Veterans Lending Group. I came to them with a business plan. I said, here's who I am in the community. Here's what I want to be. Here's where we're going. Can you do this? And can you support this? If not, then I'll find somebody else. And they said, well, no, this is what we want to do too. So what I didn't know is that I was taking a for-profit organization, but doing a whole lot of nonprofit work with it. And I basically jumped into, inadvertently, suicide interdiction and suicide prevention. And because my friends were starting to kill themselves, or were killing themselves and hurting themselves. So I embedded myself into that life, got with some nonprofit organizations that were doing some really good work. And 6 years later, I was able to create a program. Number one, about 4 years ago, with the Ranger for Life program, and it was a 3-day transition program that goes over different levels of fitness, physical fitness, social fitness, mental fitness, so on and so forth, and as well as preparation for transition. A buddy of mine, Matt Wilson, and he would say, I want to create something that is more like a heads up to people, like, hey, here's what you need to know before you get out. Here's the struggles that you're going to face. These are the things that you need to prepare for. Here's the things you need to apply for, et cetera, and et cetera. And so in doing so, along that path of kind of putting this program together, he suicided. So that later that year is when we first put on the first Ranger for Life program at 275. We had over 250 Rangers attend that 3 days in a row. And that model was something that was effective, and I was invited to subsequent others. And then shortly, about 6 months after, is when I met John Wayne Troxel, SEAC 3. If you don't know, the audience know what that is. It's the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And we had just brought him on as a brand ambassador. Now, mind you, I didn't know what the hell a SEAC was, right? A lot of guys didn't was like, what's that? So when I looked him up and found out that what he did, I was like, oh, you're the guy. So when I met with him, I said, I saw what you did, and which is quite impressive. I don't know you, you don't know me, but here's what I've done, and here's my vision: is to take this message and spread it across DoD. I want all Department of Defense active duty from the top down to understand what the hell is going on out here, how to properly prepare themselves, and what they need to do for transition. Because out here, everyone's killing themselves. In there, it's different. You guys aren't seeing what's happening out here and what I'm dealing with. And he had this big look, like he was shocked. Like, number one, no one's ever talked to me like that, since I was a private. And number two is, he says, I didn't know, but I'm all in. And from there, I was able to join forces with him over the past year and travel the country and talk with various military units, and literally from the top down. So we're talking we're talking division level, brigade level, special forces groups, and so on and so forth. But we're out there talking to these, one time I had 38 E9s in a room, asking them if they knew about benefit delivered at discharge for their own benefit. And not one raised their hand. And I said, well, this is the problem, and it's not your fault. We're going to change that. And that's the message that, unfortunately is not quite sunk into our active duty leadership or the VA to create some sort of program, let alone the time it takes for them to understand the importance of this. So that's the level of work that I like to get in now. Is it's more of the proactive work versus the reactive work. There's a lot of opportunity for people to do the reactive work, which is hey, I'm out, or I'm homeless, or I'm losing my job, or I need you're struggling in some way. But where I like to be now is how can we get ahead of that?
So
now you were
with all the work that you're doing, you talked a lot about Rangers and doing these on Ranger compounds. And I know that you've been involved in the Darby Project and different things like that. Do you feel the special forces, so it would be inclusive of all the different branches, this is a different conversation for
No.
special forces and everything that's encompassed in that, or military entirely?
Right. So here's the thing, and why it started there. Number one, I started that there because that's number one. That's my community, right? It's what I know, and it's all about relationships, right? I can't go to just a unit and say, hey, here's the message that I want to share. It had to happen organically. And there's this thing that as Rangers that's been beat into us since we put the scroll on was, Abrams Charter, right? Is, essentially summing it up is that what you learn within the Rangers, is to be the elite, the best, the finest, the strongest, the fastest, and then take those skills, those leadership experiences, and go to the rest of the Army to better the whole organization as a whole. Inherently, when people look at, what are they doing, right? Who is they? And that's usually people that are in the special operations units. This is look at Jocko Willink, right? This is, SEAL mentality, or this ways to leadership. And so starting it within the Ranger program, within the Ranger community, inadvertently, everyone else is going to look at that and say, well, how can we do that? How can we apply those same principles within our organization? How can we make that happen here? So when I shared that with John, you know, when he springboarded into action and invited me to the first time that we talked on stage was at Fairchild Air Force Base, right? So we have, so it becomes it has always been a military thing, but it needed to, for whatever reason, start within the community. It did, to show that it works, to show that we have something functional, so that we can execute, to show that we have a message and that the messages and things that we're sharing are important. And then having the right people that identify that and say, yes, that is important. And that happened to be John Wayne Troxel. And then for him to come in and bring me along and embed me into those relationships. So that way it does become a military thing. And here's the thing too, is when John said, hey, when I said, hey, I want us to do this across the DOD, he says, no, the whole world. So this is something more than just special operation, Rangers, special ops, Army, or the Department of Defense. This is also an allied partnership thing, because all military that face the same struggles, sustain hardships, but they can also, want to show them that they can also thrive instead of survive as well.
Now, has anybody done a study to see if there's in the military a certain part of the military that commits suicide more than other parts, like special forces or anything else? Has anybody looked into that to see if there's some, because I've talked to a few people on this show from overseas in UK, and they had the same issues, and they were special forces. I'm not saying I'm just wondering if there is some type of, that type of person who can go through this is the one. It's something to look into to see if there's some way that we can pinpoint where the most of the issues are so that we can address it ahead of time. I'm saying it's across the board, but there's got to be some information,
I think it's so after Matt suicided, I went on a search for some truths, right? And I was invited to do this continuing education program with it was like 15 PhDs, right, here in the area that were seasoned, by the way. And the person that was leading it was actually the one that came up with the statistics, working with the Department, the Navy, and the VA on the 22 a day. So the statistics that we saw, and the numbers, or the data, I should say, and the stats, was that right around 2003 is when, so you have, the suicide lines that go across. About 2003 is when the veteran one starts to go like that, right? And while, for that data, it was more of, hey, the suicides are going up. Then we look at the age brackets, and it's actually the older veterans have the highest percentile of suicide rate. Now, when to my knowledge, there hasn't been a study done on, hey, let's break this down by branch or by special operations units. But I can tell you that in the early days, when these special operators were coming back, you could just see what was happening, right? While he's deployed, old Jody comes in, hangs out with his wife, comes back, you shot them both, right? Like that, right? So I don't think it's where you separate it to the point of is it a special operator? I think it's where what environment were they in, where they're conditioned to pull that trigger easily, a lot easier than if they hadn't been in some of those roles, right? So just because someone's in, we say, well, special operates this, that, and the other. Well, while they might have in those early days been, they're easier to pull the trigger. When we look at conventional forces, we look at all these others that are going on. Now it starts to pile up as well. A lot of people end up with trigger time. Then we talk about people with stressors. And my good friend Tony Dayton puts it like this: he is a suicide survivor. Okay, he says, and it kind of put chills down my spine. He says, it's not a matter of if someone has suicidal tendencies. It's not a matter of if. It's when they build up enough courage to do so. And, some people could debate, oh, I don't think that's courageous, this, that, and the other, but it's, it just gets to that point of when someone's had enough, and what's that ease of their mind and their position at that moment to do so. So I, instead of kind of categorizing it that way, it's, obviously we saw the problem a lot within the community. We did what we could to address it because I was a trusted member within the community to begin to share those things, and because the work that had gone prior. And what I want to do now is just continue that example, so that other units can look at this and see that's normalized. It's not just a particular segment of our society that has these issues. It can go across the board. In fact, when John and I were at Fairchild Air Force Base, we had learned that 2 weeks prior, someone within their ranks had suicided, and that was a big deal for that unit. And I was able to just say, you know what? I'm going to fucking talk about, sorry, just what I am. I'm going to talk about it. And we talked about it. And I said, hey, I understand there's a member here that suicided, and it's okay to talk about that. It's okay for you to feel down on some days. It's okay to wonder what is that we're doing. What can we do better? And it resonated with a lot of people. At the end of our talks, these service members come up to us and they say, a lot of it was just, hey, I just want to say thank you for bringing that up, and the unit is hurting, and that resonate with them, and they'll walk away. And when that happens, when somebody because usually in those things, it's like, let's get the hell out of here and get some punch or get some lunch, right? But they're taking their time to come and say no, thank you. And then when they do the after action reports across the unit of leadership, it's effective. And as John says, if it wasn't working, then we wouldn't keep getting, invited back. So,
the biggest thing is, how can we change this and address it more? That's why I was trying to find out if anything was done to see that we need to focus more here, because I know people across the board. Just this last year with COVID, so many, people committed suicide in service, that was they're stuck in their rooms and stuff like that. And then I know of recently of E9 who just did, there's a lot of this happening. And the question is, it's something you're saying, the older ones, because they lose their purpose, they lose certain things and they don't know where to go. You said, we've had a few people on here who talked about it and they didn't luckily go through with it, but things came out to help them get through it. How can we help more vets to, that's what I want to know, because we had somebody on the other day talking about the challenge, and he's like, it's stupid. You should reach out to 22 people a day. And that's what Amy and I have been doing since we had him on.
I think it's so getting to that specifically, then that's something that's kind of, I'm glad you brought that up. It's something that's evolved in my own experiences. One is I have TBI, right? And
for people who don't know what that is,
traumatic brain injury, right? And a traumatic brain injury can result from is something like a vehicle accident. You bump your head. You drop too many mortars down the tube. You're at the left of any type of breach or right of any type of breach. All those things are contribute to TBIs, whether they be minor or major. Also, with PTSD, and it's the synapses in the brain, so on and so forth. And so when we're looking at, okay, what can we do to get after that? So I've kind of come up in my own experiences as three-sided effect. One is where I say it's the science, right? So it's science, your science, spiritual, and community. So what I mean by that is the science is, I just came back from a TBI recovery program that I'm a brand ambassador and hopefully soon to be a board member for that, where they actually go in and remap your brain to prior to a TBI incident, to basically get your synapses connected and firing at a 5-lane highway versus going up, down, and around the trails and all that kind of stuff. Because what happens during those times is you get ambushed, right? Anxiety, depression. I didn't understand what that person meant. Since we're always switched on, maybe we cry at a kitty commercial and want to rip someone's face off the next moment, right? Also, as a physiology side of making sure that our chemicals are in balance. Are we producing enough oxytocin, serotonin? Are we always switched on to where we're not able to even create testosterone. Maybe that testosterone that we're adding to our body becomes estrogen, and it just worsens the effects of what we're at. And if we don't get after and understand where we're at to balance those things out, then it could be catastrophic. And the more imbalances and misunderstandings, that could also lead to hopelessness, helplessness, etc. The other side of that, when I say, is the spiritual side, whether that be religion, finding your purpose, family, community, you want to do an ayahuasca trip, whatever it is for you, is to find whatever that anchor is. And then the foundation of that, it would be community, right? Your tribe. What is it that's around you that you can jump into? One of the organizations I'm a part of and the board member of is the Ptsd Foundation, which would actually translate to the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation, where we are the recipient of a $5 million grant from Boulder Crest from Ken Falk. So we have the Warrior Path program and initiative here in the Pacific Northwest that we're able to send 74 combat vets and 24 first responders per year to this program, all free, 7-day course with an 18-month journey on how to, of training, okay, not tools, resources, actual training of learning how to utilize those skills that we innately have from being in the military and serving, and what we would think is a detriment, and how to turn those into positives, whether that be, well, I have to sit with my back towards this way, or I have some anxiety, how can I channel that? But all that is training. And with that is creating more force multipliers of this understanding and getting out there and just sharing these messages. So I think the more that we talk about this, the more podcasts that there are, the more people that are actually saying, hey, what can we do to make a change? Because everyone's tired. I'm sick of awareness. Like, we're aware, we're woke, we get it, but what are you doing and to actually execute on fighting against that? And so, recently I've just retired out of the work with Veterans Lending Group, and so I can focus on these initiatives more, and really lean in and put that focus to make a difference and make that change.
Does retired mean unemployed?
You can call it whatever you want, man.
I don't know what he calls it, but
I'm
he's
in the loan business. I know what retires means from the loan business.
I'm just living, baby. I'm living. No, the past 4 years I've been working on a business model down in the Caribbean. So a little island called Curacao, and it's a small military base there as well, called the FOL, which is a small Air Force and Navy contingent. But
and he's never invited Mark and I.
I wouldn't. So that's
right?
Okay.
There's plenty of programs coming up, but another organization I'm part of is with Operation Word 57, and we're actually creating an initiative to send a group of 4 veteran couples or first responders out to Curacao to kind of decompress, go through. I'm bringing a mental health specialist to kind of help write the program. I'm getting with my neurologist so that we can understand the best value and benefit for people's time, and creating that, the serotonin, the oxytocin in the brain, and what time should we have them rest and that kind of. So it's a lot, real intention behind that. And then I have a jet ski company there that we do jet ski tours. So but I sold my house here in my townhome here in Tacoma, and I just got to a point where it's like, what, why not start living that life and enjoying that life, where so many people feel that they have to wait. And Amy will tell you as well, is one of the things that I try to do as much as possible is be transparent and really live that example. I don't believe that you should ask anyone to do something that you haven't done yourself. And while the Caribbean and these things that I like to do might not be for everybody, it's about creating and showing that there's different paths for people, right? And what's the right path for you? And my best friends, Pete Quintanilla, have an organization called Right Path, and it's just that, and he's an amputee, but he does climbing and diving and all that shit. But guess what? Maybe someone has a bad back, they can't do that stuff. But what other programs are there that would be a right path for them? Because there's so many different things that are available. It's just, how do we get all these Cheerios that are out there and put them in the necklace that shows some cohesiveness, that really separates, the organizations that are putting in the work and that are worthy of their information being shared.
Well, and when you get that up and going fully, let me know.
100%. Yeah. Working on the website this week. I'm actually going through the edits. We had a group last month come out. So Yeah, we're really close. Really close. And then
And Pete
actually,
said
Operation
that
Warp
he
Baby
would
7's
sign up for
coming
the
on.
podcast in January.
What's that? Pete did?
I said Pete said he'd sign up
Yeah.
for the podcast in January, so you could fuss at him with me.
I'm in there. You got to hold him to it. That if he says he's going to start flying again. So when that happens, you might have to fly by some towers or something.
Well, he was also said he would hike with me this week and next, and before he goes back, before he starts flying again. But I think he might have been frustrated after I brought up how he got us lost as a ranger.
Well, he's been out a while.
Hey, Ron, before we go, is there anything else you want to add for people to know?
A lot of people say things like, if you need help, reach out and ask for it. I'm a believer in that. I think it takes much more than what. You back?
You're back. One more time. Ron, can you hear us? I think we lost Ron there.
Can you hear us?
He's trying. He doesn't look happy.
He never looks happy.
All right. I guess we lost Ron. Amy, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Are you here?
All right. So yeah, I'm here. So let's take us out because unfortunately we lost Ron. So
okay.